Now, talking about relationship, today, as I mentioned earlier, the focus will be on how mental health affects marriages. So we have Olaiwola Abiola with us. He is a certified professional mental health counselor with a specialization in relationship and marriage counseling, who uses his background in counseling and psychology to empower individuals to transform their personal relationship and professional lives. So it's such a pleasure to have you in the studio with us today.
Good to be here once again. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Now, Olaiwola, when we talk about mental health, people's antennas tend to just start flying, like mental health. Is the person crazy or what? But really, there is a definition for mental health.
Definitely.
Yes. Could you tell us more about it?
Okay, thank you once again for having me. Well, where else can we go to draw a reference as far as mental health is concerned, if not World Health Organization? According to World Health Organization, mental health is a state of being where an individual is able to fulfill his potential, his abilities, able to cope with normal stresses of life, and at the same time being productive and fruitful in his engagement, and being able to contribute to his society.
And being able to contribute to the society as well.
So that's the definition. So mental health, generally speaking, has to do basically with our psychological, emotional, and our social well-being. That is, it entails what you think, what you feel, and how you behave, and how that behavior translates to your general outcome in day-to-day life realities. So you can't separate mental health from someone's thought pattern, feeling, emotions, and at the same time, the behavioral outcome. Because according to research, it has been discovered that what you think influences what you feel, and what you feel influences how you behave. And eventually your behavior will determine your outcome, whether in marriage, whether in business, whether interaction with, in any relationship at all. So mental health is key and it's very, very important. Okay,
so now that we've established what mental health is, let's talk about mental health as it affects marriages.
Okay.
How exactly can it influence or destroy a marriage?
Beautiful, beautiful question, and interesting one for that matter. Just like our physical health, it's like asking how does physical health affect or influence marriage? It's a straight answer, because if you marry someone that is always in the hospital, definitely to affect. Marry somebody that is not healthy, it's going to affect the marriage, no doubt. So also mental health. Now, mental health is better explained as a continuum. Let me give a scenario, like a scale of 10 to 1. At 10, regarded as the positive state of mental health, and at 1 as a low state of mental health, like what we call mental disorder or mental issues. Okay. So each and every one of us oscillate between 10, from 1 to 10 at every point in time in our lives.
Especially when you're angry,
yes,
you go
so
to like 10.
Yes, life happens. Yeah. So because one of the things that trigger mental health issues, mental health is a state of well-being, a state of optimal functionality. But because of life realities, life happens. Lagos traffic alone, can trigger mental issues. Life stressors, disagreement between you and your spouse, your children not doing well despite the enormous investment you're putting into them. So, or maybe you've been trying to do a lot as far as your business is concerned. Things are not just working out. The forex exchange alone can influence, a state of mental issue. So to say, because in as much you are threatened in one area or the other, it affects and oscillate. So when life happens, life stressors especially affect our state of health. As I say, it's a continuum. So, but in as much it's still not affecting your day-to-day functioning, you are still okay. There's a stage you are within this continuum that you are still fine. But when you begin to degenerate to the lower part, then we have things like anxiety, depression, and the likes, phobias, and all sorts. Then there's need for someone to pay attention.
So I'm so glad you mentioned paying attention, because that brings me to the next question.
Okay.
Now, we've established how mental health affects marriages. However, if you have someone you feel has certain mental health issues, how can you identify it when you're married?
Okay. As I said earlier on, as I said, we oscillate.
Yes.
At times, for example, a lot of people say, I'm depressed. Actually, what they have is not depression. It's probably intense sadness.
Okay. So there's a difference between intense sadness and depression.
Yes, because maybe, for example, you just got in a sack letter. You're going to feel sad. People just brandish the word, I'm depressed. To be depressed, have some parameters that will to let us know that you are depressed. Maybe some things must have been there for at least nothing less than 2 weeks and things like that. So when as far as our marriage is concerned, if your partner is having mental challenges, Okay, let me bring the issue of depression, for example. Maybe this has gone and has been clinically diagnosed as it's depressed. There are 3 things going on in the head of someone that is depressed. Number 1, I'm not good enough. No matter what the issues are, it revolves around these 3 major things. Number 1, there's a feeling of I'm not good enough. Number 2, there's a feeling that the world is against me. And number 3, there's a feeling that the future is bleak. They begin to judge or define their present-day realities in the light of their future, rather, judge their future in the light of their present-day realities. So when they get to that point, they begin to have suicidal ideation and the likes. So a man coming from work, things not doing fine, and the wife seeing him, that's not the best time to start nagging and start asking about other stuff. It's a time to pay attention to him, to empathize with such a person, and look at
encourage the person.
Simple things are just, honey, everything will be fine. We're in this together. I've got your back. Don't worry. Let's have some savings and things like that.
I actually like all of this because this brings me to the question that I remember I mentioned to you even before the conversation started, and that is, how do you manage such a situation? Manage in the sense that, you know, we always believe that for every problem there is a solution. Walking out of the marriage, of course, is an extreme way to handle it. But if you find yourself in a position where you can actually even manage it, how do you go about it? You've mentioned empathy, you've mentioned trying as much as possible to be encouraging. But in what other ways? Because sometimes you can do everything in quotes, but it still wouldn't work.
Well, for me, I believe that marriages can work if you work them. So one of the things we should do, or in that kind of state, is to take the bull by the horn, encourage them to go see a professional.
Good.
A professional will help whoever is in crisis to see the issue in proper perspective, the issues in proper perspective.
Yeah.
So, but most of the time, because of our religious
and societal
beliefs, most of the people run to their religious did that. Fine, because as far as mental health is concerned, you know what is called support system.
Yes.
And why mental health affect marriage and marriage affect mental health is because marriage is supposed to provide the needed support system. But at times, you do not have, when it gets some level, you don't have the professional skill to help.
Yeah.
Now, even religious leaders that are now enlightened, when you go to them, they will tell you, look, we've done our part to take up the spiritual aspect.
Yes.
But you think you need to see a professional
to
be able to get it. If your car is faulty, you don't go to your pastor, you go to the mechanic. If your wife's about to deliver, you don't go to your pastor, you go to the maternity center. Yeah. So also issue of mental health issues. So when you have issues, there are professionals that you can work. So you can encourage your spouse to go see a professional.
Thank you so much for your time, Olaiwola Abiola. It's been amazing having this conversation with you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. All right, so you heard it. As we've said several times on Wake Up Nigeria, when a matter goes beyond you, seek professional help. Thank you so much. So that's about it for talking about mental health today, especially in marriages. We'll take this break and we'll be right back to have a conversation with our guests.